Here at the Union Dry Dock, we want to welcome you to The Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano, along with our political analyst, Josh Sotomayor Einstein. And we want to thank you for joining us for your weekly one-stop shop for sports picks, politics and government chatter, and even some neighborhood restaurant reviews. Instead of going to 3 different channels, you can come here every week for The Pulse on everything you need to know. And Josh, if you remember, a few weeks ago, we had Ron Hind, who is the executive director of Fund for a Better Waterfront.
I do remember. It was a great episode.
It was.
Isn't this episode going to be different from our usual 3-in-1 episodes?
You know it because we're skipping our picks and places segment, and we're going to focus on this 3-acre piece of land that was purchased by New York Waterway for their ferry refueling and maintenance station. And joining us today, and we're so happy to have them here today, are Jennifer Schuck, who's a spokeswoman for New York Waterway, and Donald LaLoya, a senior vice president for New York Waterway. Jennifer, Donald, Josh, how you guys doing today?
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic,
Happy
Donald, off camera, you had a fascinating story of your history here in Hoboken. I was just wondering if you can explain to our viewers what you told Josh and I, because we were mesmerized. Well, I don't know about Josh, but I was.
It was very
mesmerizing story.
It was very interesting.
I lived here for 30 years. I recently moved out, and
Right.
I actually worked for the city of Hoboken at one time. I'm an urban planner. I was director of economic development in the 80s. And at that time, I was thinking about how we fought to keep Union Dry Dock safe here in Hoboken, and so that it wouldn't be displaced. And I was thinking about when they were first putting together the regulations for the Governor's Walkway, as it was called then, which is an esplanade that was supposed to stretch from Bayonne to the George Washington Bridge. And even at that time in the 80s, they realized the value of these properties and the jobs that these properties offered the people who lived in the city of Hoboken. And one of my first tasks as a planner in Hoboken was to figure out a way to get the walkway around Union Dry Dock so it didn't disturb the operations here. And it's a little ironic that here I am,
Here you are.
30-something years later,
I was gonna say.
and I'm still trying to figure that out.
It's like the Groundhog's Day, exactly.
so-
exactly. And Jennifer, I was wondering if you could explain to the audience, there are a number, probably you have a specific number for us, of Hoboken residents and people who just take the path from the 2 ports of embarkation here in Hoboken every day. Do you have that number for us?
Oh, it's actually thousands a day out of Hoboken 14th Street, as well as the New Jersey Transit Rail Ferry Terminal. Now, we are right by the rail terminal with the path and the trains that come in, and thousands of people, not only from Hoboken, but all around the region, go through that terminal. And Hoboken 14th Street, thousands again, and that's mostly Hoboken residents, all Hoboken residents there.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. It's such a vital piece of transportation. I mean, it really is. So
Well,
why don't we, go ahead, please.
No, yeah, and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey has said that the answer to the mass transit problems are the ferries. Yeah, so they did a study for that, and that's the truth. So, we got a lot of support from NJ Transit and the path because they know how important we are to the region as a transportation
So,
partner.
Donald, you were talking about your personal history with this plot of land, but when did New York Waterways decide that this was the spot that it really wanted to build its dry dock and refueling station?
Well, I've been with Waterway for 22 years, and part of my job was always to try to find a maintenance facility, and we focused on Union Dry Dock for probably 15 years. There was one point that it was up for sale for millions, 23, $24 million. It wasn't a reasonable purchase for us. And after many years of negotiations, we were finally able to agree on a price. It was an arm's length transaction, nothing under the table. I mean, it was a very simple private to private acquisition. We bought the land, we did our due diligence. The land was zoned appropriately. It wasn't in the open space plan. It wasn't part of the master plan to be a park. So we moved forward and we purchased the land in good faith. And we're still very confident that we can be here and we will be here.
And how many jobs do you think will be added to Hoboken once the facility's up and running?
Well, it's an interesting question. We employ a number of people today who live in Hoboken. The maintenance facility, when it comes here, I would think that you'll probably add a dozen more jobs for people who live locally. But we're expanding as a business, as Jennifer said. The reliance on the ferry as a solution to the mass transit problem is something that we see and hear and live with every day. Right. So we have trouble with the tunnels that cross underneath the Hudson. What happens to those? The only solution really is the ferry. And we've expanded significantly. We carry about 30,000 people a day. And if you think about that number, that's probably about 10% of the people who enter Manhattan from northern New Jersey on any given day.
That's unbelievable. And when I say jobs, obviously that's going to be new jobs that's added, but that's not including the jobs that you're going to be bringing from your current facility here. And I know a number of our elected officials, and Josh would agree, I mean, they consistently talk about bringing in new business during the day in Hoboken, bringing in commercial business. So it's kind of a little odd what's going on now when you're going to have people placed here and utilizing our businesses during the day. I mean,
Absolutely.
How many people are going to be here at the site, every day?
Between crew and mechanics, there's probably about 100 people that'll rotate through here. Mechanics, I think we'll probably have 30 here on site.
Throughout the day. Yeah.
But remember, Union Dry Dock at its peak used to have 150 people working here.
Well, like this situation is like a family that outgrew its house. Like, when a family buys a house, it's like, okay, this is our starter house, and then it grows and they need to expand. This is really kind of what it is. I mean, we outgrew our facility that we're at right now. And because there's more demands for ferry service, our fleet has more than doubled in size. And this is really what it is. It's a family needing to move to a bigger location. It's really what you have to look at it that way.
Exactly. Now, there's been a lot of talk about when actual repair of ferries do occur. Do you believe that it'll happen in the evening hours, or?
Well, our ferries are generally busy during the peak periods. So there's a couple of times when that will happen. It'll happen during the day when the boats are back home. We do work on our boats in the evening. But that work is for safety reasons. That work is inside the boats. So it's not a kind of activity that you're going to see flashes of welding, you're going to hear noise. But even so, that occurred here. I lived in the shipyards,
as you know.
So I used to look down on the site, and they would work 24 hours a day here. So.
And worst case scenario, obviously no one is hoping for New York Waterways to have any problem, but let's say, something happened to the location, how would that, and New York Waterways wasn't able to have it, how would that impact the ferry service for everybody, not just in Hoboken, but across New Jersey?
Well, it's a cost issue, right? So we're not subsidized. We don't receive an operating subsidy. We do have public partners in some of our facilities. So it's a question of, can we continue to maintain an efficient operation? And unlike PATH or New Jersey Transit, which operates on a 35% return on the fare box, if our routes aren't productive and efficient, we have to raise our rates. It's really that simple. So I don't know how much of that can be absorbed.
So we're going to have to take a commercial break. My producer Greg is giving me the cut symbol here. When we come back, we're still going to be here at the Union Dry Dock. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be back. Peter Biancamano here of the Pulse of Peter B. Folks, get on our YouTube channel in case you missed any of our 20-something shows that we've done, and even our webisodes. They're all stored there. Go on there, subscribe to us. This way we can tell you when our new shows that are posted and our webisodes are posted. And, of course, you can always rewatch or binge watch those shows and get the pulse on everything you need to know.
For 30 years, New York Waterway has been a trusted friend of the city of Hoboken by enhancing the everyday commute for thousands of city residents and by always answering the call during emergencies big and small. Now that reliability and comfort the ferries offer is in jeopardy. The Union Dry Dock facility is vital to the ferry's existence. You don't have to choose between reliable transportation and parkland. Learn the truth. New York Waterway and Hoboken are better together. Visit nywaterway.com/truth.
Welcome back to the Pulse of Peter B. Still here at the Union Dry Dock, and still with our political analyst, Josh Sotomayor Einstein, along with our Senior Vice President of New York Waterway, the Senior Vice President of New York Waterway, Donald LaLoya, and the beautiful Jennifer Schuck, who's a spokeswoman for New York Waterway as well. Now, Josh, you were asking Donald a question, so I usually interrupt you.
So we mentioned him before, but Ron Hein, the director of the Fund for Better Waterfront, who was on the show, suggested that New York Waterways go to a location either in the Lackawanna terminal or further south in Hudson County to Bayonne and receive some sort of state or federal subsidy or funding to build the type of dock that it needs. What are your thoughts on that idea?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting comment by Ron that he's prepared to give away other people's money. I don't really know how that works. If the states, the cost for either one of those facilities is multiple millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, whether it's Erie Lackawanna or Bayonne or Weehawken. They throw out these locations as if they can work. Actually, this is probably the most environmentally sound location because, again, we were talking about upland. In any of those locations, certainly Erie Lackawanna, there is no upland. So for us to recreate the equivalent of this upland, you're talking about a 3-acre pier. Try to get a 3-acre pier built on the Hudson River between DEP and the Army Corps, and again, the local opposition. So now we're creating shadow where it doesn't exist. So it's a very difficult, and it's a false choice. I mean, this is really the location that we should be in, and it's probably the most environmentally sound. And I think if Ron really did his homework and he understood the coastal zone management regulations, the first thing they're going to ask is, what's your alternative to going there or to going to Bayonne? And we would say, well, we own a shipyard in Hoboken. And why are we having this conversation about building it somewhere else?
Exactly. And the cost differential, which is, I mean, you've mentioned
multiple millions
of dollars. I mean, and we took a tour of the Union Dry Dock. Jennifer was nice enough to give us a little bit of a tour before we started filming today, and we were shocked of how old this facility is and what shape it's in. I mean, it's just unbelievable. How much work do you think that you guys need to put in here before you can move into your land? Because it's your land. So.
Well, what you see today would be remain for a while. It would be an interim solution. I think you may have seen the renderings of the proposed facility. It's probably in the $30 million range, and that's a substantial amount of money for a private company like us. But understand, other locations could be twice or 3 times that. And that's something that the city has to confront if it wants to condemn the land and relocate us somewhere else. There's a certain obligation that's going to go to the city for that. First, you got to buy the land, and then there's a cost to move us and create a facility that's suitable for us somewhere else.
Now, some of the concerns that people have said are related to the environment, and so I think we're just wondering, how has New York Waterways been a good steward of its local environment and its other locations, past locations? How has it contributed positively to the environment there?
Well, the company's policy, and certainly Arthur Imperator is the founder of the company and is renowned for his approach on his facilities. We are good stewards. We are in the process of repowering a large portion of our fleet. They'll have the cleanest Tier 3 engines available. We're starting a hybrid program so that the boats, when they're in close quarters, will actually be running on batteries and there'll be no emissions. But remember, we operate in parks today. Our facility at 39th Street is in the middle of the Hudson River Park Trust. Our facility at World Financial Center is in the middle of Battery Park City in the park down there. We understand the obligations to being on the waterfront and having a facility that can work in a sympathetic manner with open space.
Oh, it sounds great.
That is. And when we were interviewing Ron Hein, we brought this up to him because I know that New York Waterway has released this message to the public, and that was, putting a facility in Bayonne, besides it costing millions, tens of millions of dollars more money, it's also not a good location for you guys, correct? No. To move your ferries because you just don't service that area of the county, correct?
Right, and this is centrally located between all of our routes. That we have 16 terminals. We have 22 routes that run on 34 boats. So this is really the central facility. And when we have to move equipment quickly, I mean, you guys see how many times, you live in Hoboken, you've seen how many times that we have to back up NJ Transit and the path. We couldn't be able to do that as efficiently, as effectively if we were all the way in Bayonne. We need to move the boats fast. So there's crew here, there's boats here, we can get them out really quickly and aid in the situation.
We like to pose the question to the city of Hoboken. You wouldn't put your DPW facility in Bayonne.
Right.
Because your need is here.
It's a very
this is central to our operation. So why would we put the maintenance facility, the most critical thing that we have, right, in terms of our maintaining our boats, several miles away?
Right.
And this is going to be a maintenance facility. We've got some feedback by a lot of Hoboken residents. We've been out there in the community, just talking to the people, answering questions. A lot of people are under the misconception that this is also going to be a terminal, which is not. This is not a terminal, it's a maintenance facility.
And that's what it is, right. Now, what are some of the differences between the past use of the Union Dry Dock and how New York Waterway is going to use these 3-acre piece of land?
Well, remember, over a 130-year period, this has been an active shipyard. It's interesting, that cove was actually a coal tar transfer point where rail cars used to get onto barges and go across to New York City.
That's amazing.
So it was never really, it was never a pristine cove, right? Well, Union Dry Dock used to haul large steel vessels, take them up in dry docks, blast them. Sometimes those tankers would have the remnants of volatile chemicals inside, coal tar, fuel oil, gasoline. So it's different in the sense that our boats are smaller, but they also maintain boats here. They maintain steel dinner boats. They used to maintain the Circle Line boats here. So it's not vastly different from the nature of the operation. Ours is a smaller scale. And the reality is, if these were yachts that were being hauled and maintained here, I doubt that there would be a complaint.
Exactly.
If these were 150-foot yachts that were worth millions of dollars as opposed to, a commuter operation, I don't really think you would get the complaints.
Right.
So.
And we were talking before the show how there are a number of Hoboken residents that I know I've spoken to who feel that this is Hoboken's one last piece of their industrial past in a way, but it's not so much because like Jennifer mentioned, it's just simply a ferry maintenance station here, more than anything else. But still, I mean, I can tell that people are still, as I'm sure you said, you looked from your window down to the shipyards back when you lived in Hoboken. So I think it's fascinating.
The thing that there seems to be some false narratives out there, particularly about this as a fuel depot.
Correct.
Right? And it's not a fuel depot. And if you look at the renderings, I challenge you to find where the fuel storage is.
Interesting.
We'll have less fuel on this property than the local gas station has underground. And there's probably, when those boats are not far from here, in front of Maxwell, in front of the shipyard, are taking on fuel, the delivery vessel probably has 3 to 4 times the amount of fuel that we would have in the ground here.
You're talking about the dinner cruise boats that they have over there?
So, I mean, they get fueled at the dock.
Sure.
Right?
So,
So it's a common practice. There's millions of gallons of fuel that go past this site every day.
Right in the
within
water.
Several hundred feet of the piers.
Exactly.
So, it's this false narrative that we're creating a fuel depot. And I think if we could get a productive dialogue going, which we've offered to do, we've offered to have that conversation with the community several times. Shortly after the mayor was elected, we walked into his office. We had a conversation with him. He suggested we have a charrette with the community. We said, great, we're on board. That's how we like to work. Next thing we know, the property was being condemned.
Well, hold that thought, because we
Okay.
do have to take another commercial break here. When we come back, we'll be back with our final segment here at the Union Dry Dock. Peter Biancamano, your hostess with the mostest of the Pulse with Peter B. Folks, we're only on once a week, but you can go on our Facebook page. In your search bar, type in the Pulse with Peter B. We're consistently updating new information on there. And then, if you have a question for our sports insiders, for Josh, for our food insiders, we'll be more than, even for me, we'll be more than happy to get back to you and answer those questions. Go on Facebook, like, and follow us.
New York Waterway values the rich history of Hoboken's working waterfront and the modern-day importance of preserving green space. Plans for our Union Dry Dock facility will incorporate the best of both, with a state-of-the-art ferry maintenance facility and expanded public use of the waterfront, with a promenade, fishing pier, and kayak landing. You don't have to choose between reliable transportation and parkland. Learn the truth. New York Waterway and Hoboken are better together. Visit nywaterway.com/truth.
Welcome back to the show. Still here with Senior Vice President of New York Waterway, Donna LaLoya, spokeswoman for New York Waterway, Jennifer Schuck, and of course, our political analyst, Josh Sotomayor Einstein. He told me he wasn't sweating in the hat. So anyway, Donna, before we went to commercial, you were discussing how you wanted to sit down with the administration here in town, and basically the next thing you know, they were condemning the land. Please finish your
Well, no,
thought.
it's the conversation has been that we've done this behind the scenes, that we don't want to work with the city, but that's not correct. I mean, it's not long after he was installed in office, we met with the mayor. We said, listen, we own the land. We want to build our maintenance facility here. We showed him some renderings as early as that time. He looked at them. He said, well, it's probably be good to sit with the community, have some sort of charrette. And I said, great. That's how we operate. That's how we operate in Weehawken. That's how we operate in New York City. I mean, you don't build 20 ferry terminals without interacting with the community. It just doesn't work. That's not our policy. The imperators, Arthur, Armand Pohan, the chairman, were in the room with the mayor, had the conversation. Next thing we know, there's a petition out on the street. Should we take the land? And then we're being, told that they're going to try to condemn the property. State of New Jersey interceded, and we continue to hope that we can have a productive dialogue with Hoboken.
Now, with the city's actions taken in the context of their battle with other property owners, for example, Academy Bus, do you think that there is, and also considering their repeat abuse of eminent domain, do you think there's an anti-private property or an anti-business movement or undercurrent in Hoboken City Hall?
Well, I don't think there's an anti-private property. I think there's an anti-particular use. So there are people who are moving into Hoboken who don't realize that Hoboken used to be a walk-to-work town, right? That the city had many manufacturing jobs, many waterfront jobs. So they live here, they get on a train, they get on a boat, they go to the city. So they're not in support of those jobs. As I said, there was a time when the city would fight feverishly to keep these jobs here in Hoboken rather than displace them so somebody could walk their dog on the waterfront. And I don't say that jokingly, but if you were at the Army Corps hearing, when a woman got up and she made a statement, she said, it's more important for me to be able to walk my dog uninterrupted along the waterfront than it is for these jobs to be here. And listen, they actually laughed at the union rep when he was talking about the importance of these blue-collar jobs.
That's really quite a juxtaposition, thousands of people or tens of thousands of people being able to get to work every day in Manhattan versus the convenience of having a nice view for, 300 feet, or not having a nice view for 300 feet while walking your dog.
It's going to be a nice view. It's going to be a nice view. We plan to make a nice facility for everybody, expand the walkway, see-through fencing, offering them a kayak launch, fishing pier. We're offering the public open space. We're offering green space.
It's interesting you say that because and Ron Hein mentioned this, their whole mission was to have a continuous walkway along the waterfront. And you just said that you're expanding the walkway here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, the walkway will be here.
Yeah.
So.
If you look at the design, you'll see it. There's the equivalent walkway. It's on the west side of the property. It's completely consistent with the regulations. I mean, we don't even have to build that because this is an active waterfront use, but we're prepared to build it. We're prepared to allow people to use the cove. I think you may have seen it. We're allow them to expand the cove somewhat. We're prepared to build a fishing pier, a kayak launch. I mean, now they're walking those kayaks into the river rather than using an appropriate float. So there's a lot we can do.
Exactly.
And the owners stand committed to doing it, but it doesn't happen if you can't have a productive dialogue and if people are spreading frankly, rumors about what's going to be here. It just can't happen.
Well, it sounds like you guys have really come to the table and have offered, the Hoboken community a lot of positive developments and improvements in the area, but you still have the naysayers in City Hall who constantly sort of beat the drum of war, so to speak, and are constantly calling on Governor Murphy to try to step in. Why do you think the governor hasn't stepped in on behalf of the people in City Hall?
Well, I think the governor is one supports blue collar jobs. He was largely supported by the unions. I think he understands the importance of this facility, and I think his attitude is we should be able to work this out between a private party and the city of Hoboken. Whether or not the mayor is prepared to do that, I'm not sure, because when you say there won't be a maintenance facility here unless it's over my dead body, that's probably a very difficult position to back away from and really have a dialogue.
Exactly. And it's funny, when we interviewed Ron Hein, and I'm sure Josh, you remember this, we asked him, we said, didn't the city of Hoboken have an opportunity to buy this land before New York Waterway did? And he said, yes, absolutely. And it was for, I believe, far cheaper, am I right or wrong,
Indeed, yes.
than what it would have cost to eminent domain. So it's just absolutely incredible. So I have to ask you guys, before we are running low on time here, anything you want to add? Is there any type of promotions coming up, any type of events that you want to come up, or just any message that you want to give to the residents of Hoboken and Hudson County?
Yeah.
I mean, as far as this facility, we remain confident that will prevail. We remain confident that we can create a facility that can coexist with the people that live in these buildings and up on top of the hill and who go by this property every day. We just want the opportunity to do it in a forum that's fair and is productive. That's all we ask for.
Right.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
Well, as in terms of like promotion, we're talking about the values of the company. We have coming up at the beginning of July, the Kids Ride Free for the summer. So Mr. Imperator and the Imperator family are very family oriented. We're all family oriented here at New York Waterway. I'm a parent, Donald's a parent, we're all parents. We have 400 employees from every nationality you can possibly think of, from every, walk of life. And we're all parents, and we're a big family. And I think that's what people are missing. So the Kids Ride Free for the summer, we do a lot of family programs. Mr. Imperator is really for families. And, sometimes they're saying that, there's been things in the paper about him being a bully. It's really just ridiculous. He's a wonderful man that has done nothing but try and improve the quality of life for not only the residents in Hoboken, but for, the region. I mean, all of this here you see today really is credited to the ferries. I mean, people see these buildings here, they just don't realize what it was like before the ferries came.
It's an important piece of transportation, as I mentioned before.
It's an important piece of
so they can
community.
commute to New York much easier. I mean, I live in uptown Hoboken.
And we give, they're saying we're taking away access. We give access to thousands of people a day. We
Right.
give,
Right.
the Boys and Girls Club of Jersey City their first boat ride. We constantly donate boats to the City of Water Day, educational programs. Mr. Imperator's got numerous awards, the Admiral of the Ocean Sea Award, the Billion Oyster Club has given him an award for bringing awareness to the Hudson River, and he's a member of the New Jersey Hall of Fame for his enterprise in the state of New Jersey. Not only New York Waterway, but his trucking business that started before this. So he's a wonderful man. He grew up in Hudson County. He's a Hudson County guy. And I think that people really need to know the value of this is a family business, and we are for families, and we understand where everyone's coming from.
Fantastic. Josh, anything to add before we...
I think I definitely learned a lot, and I'm really glad to have met you guys and had this conversation.
My pleasure. Well, Jennifer Shuck, Donald Laloya, excuse me. I'm like a bad paisano. I was pretty good. And Joshua Sotomayor Einstein. I'm Peter Biancamano. We want to thank you for joining us for this special edition of Pulse of Peter B. We thought that this would have been an extremely important topic to cover today, and we hope that you received a lot of the answers to your
And
questions.
Peter, can we ask people
Yes.
one more time before we go to sign a petition and maybe call the mayor's office? You can go to nywaterway.com/the truth to find out the truth about what's happening here at Union Dry Dock and to sign a petition and even to call the mayor's office for it.
There you go. I'm Peter Biancamano. Join us next week on The Pulse for The Pulse on everything you need to know. Have a great week, everybody.